To another show here of the Cold Hard Truth. We got a special treat in store for you guys this evening. I'm aware that you cannot see me. Just give me 1 second. I just need to pull up my video. We weren't able to schedule this in advance, but I told you guys for sure that we would be going live this evening. So just give me 1 quick second. And I am going to pull this up. So in case you've noticed, we have a little special segment going on here where basically we have a news show segment called Seek Out Sandy. And I want to thank a little birdie for giving us this name idea to work with. I like it and I think it's great. Now I'm just trying to figure out why nobody can see me. That would be something to fix. So give me 1 second here. Let me see. Why are we in the dark? Why are we not seeing anybody? So that's why. There we go. We are going to fix this here shortly. All right, we just needed to select the right camera, I think. I think we need to restart the camera. And let's see what's going on here. It's been a long day, and of course I've got an update for you guys in terms of where we're at with the latest numbers. So just give me 1 second here. There we are. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so we just need to make some adjustments this way and like that. Okay, so in case you guys have not noticed, we've got a new title. It's called Seek Out Sandy. And I'm gonna fix this. And basically, this is designed to get your questions answered. So we always get a ton of questions, and we thought, why not do a show dedicated to just your questions? Of course, we know that these are all Corona-related questions, and so we're going to be prepared to answer those for you. Let me just try to confirm and get let me just try to confirm and bring up our Instagram feed, and then we should be good to go. Wow, 100 people and 114 people tuned in already. You guys are awesome. Give me 1 quick second. I'm going to be looking at your comments and seeing what is going on here. Can everyone see and hear me? I guess is the first question. I'm not seeing any comments coming in, so let me just check the feed on this side. So, seeing what is going on. Okay, so yeah, you guys can hear and see me there. Let me just refresh this 1 second, because I can't actually see you in the comments here so that I can share them. Okay, so let's get this party on the road tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am going to just quickly start Instagram. We don't want them to miss out. They've actually been semi-behaving lately. I just got a picture of a ice cream truck that somehow ended up in the bushes by Savannah Primary. The ice cream truck ran into a pole. Do not ask me how that's possible. or what happened, because I simply do not know how to answer that one for you. That is super weird. I don't know if he just was staring at the kids and not paying attention or what happened. So for some reason, your comments are not coming out where I can actually put them on the screen. So please know that I'm going to read them from another screen. I just can't share them on our screen for some bizarre reason. I don't know why that is. But nonetheless, let us get it done. Okay, so Seek Out Sandy is all about trying to get your questions answered. So we've got tons of questions that people have been sending us. We will answer the questions. We get a lot of them through direct messaging. And so our attempt will be to answer as many of those as possible in advance. If we got questions that we didn't know the answer to, we have sought to seek out the correct departments so that we could try to get your questions answered for you. So I do notice that my graphics, I don't know what you guys think of this Seek Out Sandy. It looks a little bit like stretched out. So I'm going to ask my guy to work on that for me. I think something needs to be done with the actual size of it. I think he probably did it in the wrong size. So we'll get that sorted out later on. So not to worry. All right, folks, let's do it. Let's do it. So today we got confirmation that of the remaining test results that we were waiting for, some additional persons, 2 persons, have now been tested positive. And essentially what that means is those persons are at Health City. They've already been quarantined because this would be now from the group of individuals that they had already been monitoring, and from the suspected group, obviously, that they sent off for testing. So thankfully, at this point anyway, they're already in quarantine. The press release essentially said that they don't have any children, so they would not have been, exposing any children. And then, of course, that's good because that means that, had they had children, those kids could potentially be in a daycare situation. So that's better news in a way. Of course, we're all disappointed that we have 2 additional cases. No one wanted to hear that tidbit of news. And so none of us are surprised that it came from Health City, of course, because of, how patient 0 was handled. And as you guys well know, patient 0 would be the 68-year-old Italian man that that is now deceased, that was taken off of the cruise ship. So, there's been this kind of thinking that we should not question what transpired. We shouldn't really question what got there, or how he got there, how the situation developed. There's been this dialogue that, eventually you would have gotten a case, and, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the way forward. And whilst I understand that at some level, it's also quite unfortunate that we got a case at one of our hospitals. And I got to be honest with you, if I were the marketing team at the Health City facility, I would be extremely concerned, because I now know that in the community the size of the Cayman Islands, there are a lot of people asking a lot of questions about how on earth was this possible that we could have made such a decision. And not only did we make a decision that now has jeopardized our own staff, and let's be honest here, yes, the vast majority of people who get coronavirus will survive, but it still has a higher death rate than the common flu. And so that's concerning. And so, it does raise a lot of additional questions that need to be answered. And one of the things that I was actually saying to people today is that we have received correspondence from our one of our sources that indicated that there had been a report that was raised about the EMT staff and the paramedics and fire officers and whoever else came in contact with this individual. And so we're going to digest some of that information. Someone did send us some documentation that I found to be extremely interesting that we will be having a look at. We can't just brush this under the rug. I get that in the moment, we have to be focused on the most immediate situation right now, which is, give me a second, let me just adjust this camera, sorry, which is obviously trying to focus on containing this as quickly as possible. But nonetheless, there are questions I think that people wish to have answered. And quite frankly, telling us to kind of get over that is a bit insulting. And we will get those answers one way or the other. We can't overly focus on that right now, but it's coming. So in keeping with our theme for tonight, which is Seek Out Sandy, I want to go ahead and start answering some of your questions that we have received. So I'm going to just pull some up on the screen because what I've done is I have screen grabbed those questions and we can kind of review them together. So again, for those of you who are just joining us on Instagram, this is a segment that we're doing. It's a new segment and it's called Seek Out Sandy. And basically people have sent in questions to us that they don't know the answers to and they want us to investigate. And we are going to do our best to get those questions answered. And so I thought every once in a while we could do a show like this where we just, go through those questions and just get them done. And of course, in a time like this right now, there are so many questions that people have. So we're going to make our way through as many of these as we can. And if you're listening and you've got questions, let's have your questions, whether it's questions about the coronavirus, the 2 additional cases that were confirmed today. We did receive a press release on some of those, so we will answer some of those questions as well. I'm just trying to see here. So I'm just loading up some of the questions that we have received already. Some of these are super, super easy questions. And then some, of course, do dig a little bit deeper. So the first question up, I'm going to show you guys on screen, says, how can you confirm if the post office it says, hello, sorry. Can you confirm if the post office by the airport will be open or closed down? So what we know thus far is that the airport post office is currently open. So again, if that changes, we will certainly advise you guys and we'll get on it as soon as possible. So that was an easy one, still open, no worries there. Next question up, some of these are a little bit longer. So this one says, I have to pull this up on another screen because it was quite a bit longer. Okay, so this one says, "Good day, Sandra. The United States is offering $1,000 a month for the duration of the coronavirus. And for adults, and whilst the Cayman Islands is one of the most expensive places in the world to live, our government should follow suit and offer to pay each adult between $1,250 and $1,500 per month for the duration of the coronavirus, since the cost of living is extensively higher than that of the US. Could you kindly share this without providing the source, that it may swiftly reach our CI government? We, the people, are in need." Okay, so this is an interesting question. And the first thing that I would like to say about this question is the Cayman Islands, despite what you may think about our financial wherewithal, we are not the United States of America. So we're not that large of a country, first of all. So resources are limited. And I know people find this hard to believe because of the fact, like the person said, that we are so incredibly wealthy, and we're so expensive. So being expensive and being wealthy as a country are actually two very different things. I think we're more expensive than we are wealthy. So in other words, yes, it does cost a lot of money to live here. And the environment that we've created here with the cost of living and a number of other factors, it's almost like we have created an environment for the super wealthy who can afford to live here. We've not really created an environment for poor people. So the government, despite them saying that, yes, they do have some available resources, the question then becomes, how much do they actually have available? How much surplus do they have? You know, we make our money from two industries, tourism and financial services. Right now, one of those industries has collapsed. There is no tourism for the foreseeable future until this coronavirus gets under control. So government revenue, part of government revenue, and a large part of it comes from tourism, whether it's cruise ship fees that are paid, whether it's hotel fees that are paid based on the number of persons that they have registered, and other sort of auxiliary fees that trickle in from the tour industry. So if the Cayman Islands government is not getting any visitors to go to government parks, no one right now is going to Turtle Farm, no one is going to Pedro Castle, all of these locations. What that means in real terms is we have to be very, very realistic that the government, even if they have a surplus right now, they are not going to, going forward for the foreseeable future, have that available surplus. So they need to think. We have no other industries. We don't manufacture anything in the Cayman Islands. We don't really make anything in a large scale. We don't export any goods or export anything that people want. We are a small nation by all measures. 65,000 people, almost half of those are here in work permits. You know, a lot of those are having to leave the island, et cetera, et cetera. So to expect government to make a payout of $1,200 to $1,500 for each citizen, I'm afraid from a financial perspective, and I want to make it very, very clear, I'm no financial guru, but that does not appear to be a realistic option at all. What government is trying to do, they're trying to, help the most in need. So the elderly, children, they've got to now amp up NAU. So NAU budget has just been blown out of the water. So that's going to be additional money that the government is going to have to spend. So people who are expecting to be rescued by the government in a situation like this, I think their expectations are too high. And the chances of it happening are simply not that likely. And that is why I keep saying that we need to try to do whatever we can to really try to help each other out. You know, the banks, a lot of the banks have stepped forward. I'm going to talk about the banks here in a second because we do have some questions about the banks. But a lot of the banks have stepped forward and they're offering options to not pay your mortgage at this particular time for up to 3 months. But, you know, that in and of itself will create on the back end an extension that you need to be cognizant of and you're going to be responsible for, and you're going to have to pay at some point. So to answer that question as succinctly as possible, I don't believe that government has the money to do what you're suggesting. The United States of America, we can't ever compare ourselves to them in no real sense. They can print their own money if they want. They can have $1 trillion in debt that they owe themselves, or they can turn around and try to sell it to the Russians or the Chinese or whoever they feel like. We simply do not have those options available to us. The other thing that I think people need to be very, very careful with is do not take advantage of this situation right now just because you can. There will be people who are, sorry, I've got an itch. I'm trying not to touch my face directly, so I got my wipes handy. There will be people who are in financial services and other areas, and they will not be in a position to have any major concerns at this particular time. So those industries will continue at some level. But I want to caution people, because at the end of the day, please keep in mind that the other thing that we have to be concerned about is the trickle-down effect. The airline industries around the world are on the verge of collapse. So basically, they have said they're going to go bankrupt. Let me repeat that. I didn't say Cayman Airways is going bankrupt. I said the airline industry all over the world is going to go bankrupt because of this situation. Every single airline is going to be practically grounded. Now, we thought the Boeing situation with the MAX 8 was bad enough. Grounded because countries have had to shut down their borders. We're hoping that might only be for a month or two to try to contain the situation. But what if this lasts well into, the winter months? Complete bankruptcy. Moody Kiddo, we're going to go ahead and actually block you. Let me first take a screenshot because we will block you after the show. But for now, we're going to end your ability to engage in the live. Anybody else on Instagram who wants to try me? I'm not in the mood. So, right. So at the end of the day, this is what it is. I think part of my role here is to bring you the facts, but also to bring a sense of reality to the situation. We need to be real. The trickle-down effect of this could very well impact financial services as well, which means that our other industry, the only other industry we really have, could begin to have some issues because the markets are crashing. The Feds over the weekend, the Federal Reserve, basically dropped the interest rate to 0 to try to help people. They're saying, okay, no foreclosures during the next month. Nobody's going to get kicked out of their home because the U.S. is on the verge of collapsing in terms of their economy. So I think the person who sent this in, they're only looking at the one side of things. Okay, the U.S. government gave their people, they're going to give them $1,200, $1,500. Yeah, Trump did say that. But Trump is no economist, and he's not really talking about the long-term impact of exactly what's going to happen as a result of some of the decisions that he's making. He's making decisions based on these are popular decisions to make, and it's going to give the perception that he's helping the people. But the real financial fallout from this will be anything beyond his control. The markets have been the worst that they have been since the 1980s. A lot of you on Instagram were not even born in the 1980s. So think about that. That is a long time ago. I was born, but that's a long time ago. So comparatively speaking, we've not seen the stock market do this poorly since I think it was like 84, 85, when we had Black Friday and all the other stuff where people were jumping off of buildings committing suicide because the market is that bad. So I can't speak to the entire situation in the US. There was a very interesting video that we shared earlier about some of the decisions that they're making in relation to coronavirus. But I just wanted to address that question. It did come in. And of course, I think that on the face of it, a lot of times we have these questions, we see things going on in the world and we think, okay, well, if somebody else is doing it, this has to be a good idea. Why can't we do it? But we need to be prepared to look at the bigger picture, if you will. And unfortunately, there's much more to that situation than meets the eye. All right, so let's move on. Let's keep it moving. We've got another question here. Let me just pull this one up. So this one, let me just go in order here. This one was about, okay. So this one says, the government has set for anyone coming back from overseas to isolate for 14 days. So aren't flight crew people too, or do they think they're immune to COVID-19? Some of them are so scared to fly right now, and they're highly at risk and have families at home. A flight crew member asked about isolation and was told that by one of the bosses that they didn't go for flight, that didn't go for flight crew. Okay, so this is a good question. I'm a little bit surprised that no one has really thought much about the flight crew. There are actually pilots who are now infected with the coronavirus that have been grounded by a number of other airlines. And so this is part of the reason why the government had to make the decision to shut our borders. That was not the easiest thing in the world to do. I'm sure of that. But when you think about it, what other alternative is there? Because you're putting at risk, like this person actually rightfully said, you're putting at risk your pilots, which we don't have that many of. We've actually had a mass exodus of pilots. We've been working on that story, but every time we're going to post up that story, something else trumps it in terms of this is a much bigger story. But we've had like 5 or 6 pilots in the last couple of years leave, and we don't really have that many pilots to begin with. The flight crew are at humongous risk. So definitely they are a concern as well. And this person's absolutely right. The flight crew has family members that they could potentially be contaminating. They're working in a contained area, shift after shift, flying up and down, with people traveling all over the world. So the bottom line is, I agree with that sentiment. And the only solution to that, because if every single flight attendant said, I do not want to fly, we wouldn't be able to get anybody out of here. So I think the Premier has done it as quickly as possible. Let's close the airport, give people a couple days to be able to make their travel plans, make reservations, and get out. We do know that the BA flight is, there was a statement from the governor earlier that there is a BA flight that's going to be coming. I think the BA flight, someone just sent me, hold on. Let me just verify what this person sent me. That the BA flight it was not allowed to go to Nassau. But of course, we need it to come here to bring in our students, as well as the fact that it's going to, okay, so they changed something else. Okay, so scratch that. They verified that actually wasn't correct. So I won't even tell you what that original statement was, but that's fine. So yeah, so the BA flight is coming in. I've been told that it will not be permitted to go to Nassau. I don't know if that's on the leg coming, because obviously it can't pick anybody up. The main focus of that flight right now is to get people out of the Cayman Islands who need to go and to bring back our returning students. So keep in mind that in terms of our students, we have some 500 or close to 500 students that are due to come back from the UK. And they've made arrangements for some of them to be able to stay in the hotels. One word that I got today is, and I wasn't able to verify how true this really is, but people at the airport had some concerns about how they were determining which students were being put on the bus to go into the quarantine situation and which students are being allowed to go home with their parents. And someone said to me there appeared to have been like the wealthier, richer Caymanians who are, first generation Caymanians. Most of their parents are foreign nationals from the UK and wherever else. It seems like there was a disproportionate number of those persons being allowed to go home with their parents versus the Caymanians, kind of the average Caymanians that, look like the rest of us and probably went up on a government scholarship. I haven't been able to get a whole lot of information on that, and I certainly haven't been able to speak to anyone who actually experienced it. So I'm still waiting to get some feedback on that. But that was one of the concerns that I heard, that there were people at the airport who had concerns about how that was being handled. But like I said this morning, it's entirely possible that, if you are in a situation where you're going back into home environment where everybody is kind of in very close quarters, you simply cannot take that chance. And if you say that to government, they're certainly going to be encouraging you to take the bus straight to the hotel. Don't go home. Don't infect your family. Tasha actually said the BA flight came in this evening and it did stop in Nassau as usual. So Tasha, thanks for that. I had heard that it wouldn't be stopping. Maybe what the person meant, and we can try to verify this if possible, is that it wasn't picking up any passengers in Nassau. But of course, I think it has to stop to refuel, right? Now, the US had stopped flights from the UK, and they've also, by agreement, stopped any direct transport between themselves and Canada. So they have, stopped any passenger travel, whatever, because you can literally go over the border. All of that has been stopped as well. So Summer says, I was curious on the ages of the two confirmed as well, if they had shown any symptoms prior to being tested. I don't think the information was shared at the press conference. Now, Summer, I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, because I have a little bit of an issue about sometimes how the questions at the press conference are being responded to. And I know that some of you have also expressed concerns to me about this. I did send the Premier some feedback last night about this on Messenger, to say that, first of all, we probably could do well. We're always spending money on consultants. And one of the things that we probably need right now is a crisis management team. Yeah, they're experts in handling change management, crisis management, and handling situations like this. We have never been through anything like this. In fact, most of the world has never been through anything like this. But there are people who know how to deal with crisis situations at varying levels, including within government. That's important to know. The expertise that those individuals could bring to the table, in my opinion, would be something that would be extremely useful to us. We spend millions on consultants who tell us stuff that we don't really need to know, or that we already know. So spending a little bit of money on a crisis manager at this particular time to guide the government is probably not a bad idea. One of the questions posed today was, who's running the show? Who's in charge of all these decisions? And basically the Premier said that it was him and the governor. Neither one of them are trained in crisis management. At one point, the governor actually said, I mean, not the governor, sorry, my apologies. The premier actually said, he was asked some sort of tech question, and he said, oh, well, I'm not a very technical person. There have been questions and responses posed over the last week. And again, I said this morning, I'm not in the business of criticizing the government, and I do not want to criticize the government. However, some of these people on that platform, on that panel, are lacking in more ways than one. The Minister of Health is lacking. This show is still the cold hard truth, despite this is my segment, Seeking Out Sandy. So I cannot lie to you, and I have to be completely honest. He's lacking in more ways than one. It looks like he can barely read the press statements that have been prepared for him. I don't know if it's nervousness or what, but he does joke at the most inappropriate of times. And he also talks about things that are completely irrelevant. Who the hell cares about Carnival? How many of you heard that comment yesterday and went, what the hell? We don't care about Carnival right now. Who cares when we have Carnival? That's like an elective thing. Like when it happens, it happens. Right now, we're trying to save lives. We're trying to contain the situation. You know, one of our 3 hospitals is unavailable right now because they have to go through a decontamination process. And we now have confirmed 3 persons on island that have been infected by this. What does Carnival have to do with any of this? I couldn't even comprehend the relevance or the logic of why he decided to make that comment about Carnival. As though, as Caymanians, we've been so dumbed down that the only concern we have right now isn't the fact that our economy is collapsing, isn't the fact that we're having to shut off and close down our country. We're more concerned about going up there and winding up on someone. I was just like seriously? The only thing that came to my mind in that moment was WTF. What is this dude talking about? Anyway, I'm like, where's my blood pressure tablet? Let me just calm the F down, because it's times like this when I go, who on earth did we elect to public office? You know, this is us. I never voted for him, but as a people, we have to collectively take responsibility for the foolishness that goes on in this country. The other interesting thing is we're watching you guys when you're on the panel, and we see when you roll your eyes at each other. We see when the premier isn't impressed with his other cabinet members and the way that they say things and the questions and the responses that they're giving. But one of the people, Summer, going back to your question specifically, that we have an issue with is Dr. Lee. Now, I like Dr. Lee. I've actually had some dealings with him as a patient. He's not necessarily a bad physician. He has a very kind of nice mannerism. You know, seems like a cool guy. Now, maybe he's not well versed as chief medical officer in dealing with crisis situations. I haven't seen his resume. I don't know when they hired him, if that was even a consideration, because none of us expected this to go down. But one of the questions that came up a couple of days ago was about the wife of the 68-year-old guy. And he said, when asked about her, that basically almost like, why are you guys asking this question? She's a private citizen. That's none of your business kind of response. And I was like, excuse me? This isn't a private matter. This is a public situation. The same way you could tell us that a 68-year-old man has been patient ground zero with this infection, you need to tell us whether his wife has it or not. We don't know their names. We don't know who they are. And none of that information is critical or essential. But at the same time, what makes you think that there's some level of privacy that people are trying to intrude upon? No one asked you for her medical file. We just said, does the wife, because we know he's got a wife, and you already told us that she's here. There are rumors about her being off-site. Health City has said those rumors are incorrect. She was on site the entire time. Okay, fine, fair enough. Does she have it or doesn't she have it? It's a yes or no question. It's actually very, very simple. And the fact that they will not now answer those questions is making people not trust them. And this is precisely what I said to the premier. When he says, I can't even tell you what they're going to do with his body, like it's some, top secret mission, like he's an alien from outer space and now they have to dispose of his body in some top secret way. That's not the response. What people wanted to hear, and this is where they're not getting it, people want to know, once you've had this virus, is the body then considered a risk even after the person has died? Is there a certain way that you have to handle the body? Are there concerns about continued contamination after someone is dead? Like, do the funeral homes need to be careful when they're embalming someone who has had the coronavirus? Are there any additional precautions that need to be taken? That's what people want to know. They don't want you shutting down the responses and shutting down the answers or the questions that they have about, oh, this is a privacy issue. We don't think you're entitled to know that information. Actually, we are very much entitled to know that information. People made decisions that led to those persons being here on our soil. And regardless, people need to have some level of comfort to understand exactly what's going on. No, I do not need to know her name. But can I, just like any other country in the world, a 70-year-old patient has now been confirmed with coronavirus. In Jamaica, the very first thing that they did was said that woman, I can't remember what her age was. I think she might have been in her 60s as well. Returning from the UK, she was their first case. They even went on to say that the woman went to a funeral because the public needs to know that if you were at a funeral in whatever little town she is in Jamaica, you may need to get tested and you need to be concerned, and maybe you should try to self-isolate yourself. So yeah, people might actually care to have some details. And it's not a matter of breaching patient confidentiality, none at all. So Summer, we have not been really told a lot specifically about those patients. The Health City organization has issued a statement, which we posted on the website after the press briefing today, where they confirmed that there were 2 additional cases. And they basically said that 30 samples have been tested for Health City staff and their families and any other individuals who they consider to be in direct risk. And of those 30, 2 have come back positive. It also says that these persons were immediately quarantined and had samples taken from them once a patient at the facility tested positive on March the 12th. And as we recall, this 68-year-old patient has been at the facility since the 29th of February. The direct contacts of those individuals who have tested positive have also been in quarantine, and neither of them have children. So in other words, they have spouses that they've had to now quarantine as well. That's basically what that means. We don't know who those persons are. We don't know if they're primary physicians, if they're heart specialists at the HSA or the Health City. We don't know if one is the wife and one is somebody else. They actually haven't provided any of that information. So we simply do not know. What I would suggest very, very strongly to this government, if you're listening, which we know that they listen, take it upon yourself to not appear to be hiding information from the people. If the people ask you a question, there are ways to preserve patient confidentiality and still answer the damn question. Let's keep it moving. So Ellen, who was actually in the travel business, said, what we hear is that it arrives direct from London, bypassing Nassau, going back and forth for fuel to Nassau and then back to London. And that's what I heard as well. So Natasha may have someone on the flight who has told her differently. I don't really know, but a little bit of misinformation there. So yes, it will be refueling in Nassau. Alice says, hi, Sandy. I have a daughter coming back from the UK on Sunday. We're told that she can't stay at the isolation hotel that is in place because of her age. I think she's like 15 or something. She can't stay at home and no other family members to take her in. Where does she go? I did contact the 800 number and 2 callbacks saying that she can't stay there by herself. She will soon be 16. So Alice, here's the situation, and the government needs to find a solution for this young lady because there may be others in her exact same predicament. But basically what is going on here is you can only stay at the hotel that they have set up. I think they're actually going to do 2 hotels, but you can only stay at those facilities if you're 18 and older. So you have to be an adult because the government is not going to take responsibility for you, basically. And in a hotel situation, you know, there's inherent risk involved in that. And you don't want a minor who's only 16 being in a hotel full of college kids, both male and female, who knows, God knows what they're going to be doing really during their 14 days of quarantine. That's a risky situation for that young lady to be in. So the question is, and the government has got to find a solution for this. She's only 16 years old. What are they going to do? Alice, unfortunately, has recently had back surgery. So I think it's back surgery or some sort of surgery that she mentioned. Plus, she's got elderly people in her home who are high risk. So this is a situation that Alice needs some help with. So if you're listening to this and you're part of the government, you're the premier, whoever, please reach out to Alice Solomon. Alice needs urgent assistance. If there's anybody else who is also in this situation and requires assistance because you've got, again, a child who's returning from boarding school, or, you know, she may have even started university early, please reach out to Alice. Alice, I'm going to send your message directly to the premier of this country because they need to find a solution for you. I understand the difficulty of your situation and they need to find a solution. So I don't know where your daughter is going to go, but someone has to be willing to take her in. Now, let me say this. This is where we need to step up and help each other out. So if you're a parent out there and you have another child who's 15 or 16 years old, who's a girl, who's coming back, and they're going to be quarantining in your home and you have the space in your home, maybe you have an extra bedroom. You know, maybe you're one of these super wealthy New York Caymanians who has that 10,000 square foot house. Reach out a hand to Alice, you know, offer for her daughter who comes in on Sunday to stay with you and your family if you're going to be quarantining with your boarding age school daughter anyway. This is where we need to help each other out. And I'm sure there's somebody else who has a 16-year-old who's going to be returning from boarding school, university, whatever, who could probably offer some assistance to Alice. Deborah, the flight on Sunday will be a direct flight, nonstop to Grand Cayman. That's what I thought. Okay. Can someone confirm if the people who were positive are showing any symptoms? No, we cannot confirm that because nobody told us that. Actually, hold on a second. No, let me back up. Let me go back to the Health City statement. They tend to write very long statements, trust me. It says that none of the family members are showing symptoms at this time and are doing well. Here we go. The answer, I thought I did see it somewhere. They didn't say it at the press conference, but it's in the Health City statement. These 2 staff members that tested positive are experiencing very mild symptoms. So that's the words of the Health City team that sent out this press release. So they said they are suffering from mild symptoms. When will the last flight be leaving for Jamaica? Emily wants to know. Emily, you can basically go to our website as well as the Cayman Airways website. They have sent out a flight schedule. They've added additional flights to make sure that everyone who needs to get out and in can do so. So please check the website for that. We did put it up, I think it was this morning, and it's a full flight up until Sunday when everything shuts down. So all the flights are there. And Cayman Airways has actually been very good. If they make any changes, they'll send an updated itinerary. But of course, you should call them because they may have flights on, but those flights are filling up very, very quickly. Someone was asking about evictions and people raising rent. I know that this is happening. Some people have gotten notice that their rent is going up. And this is a completely horrendous situation. And I'm disgusted by anyone who would do this at this particular time. The banks have, by and large, with the exception of Scotiabank, by the way, any Scotiabank customers out there, where the hell is Scotiabank? Where are they? Not a single response from them. From last week, the Premier said Cabinet had met with the Bankers Association and they were willing to work with people and they're willing to put certain things in place. CNB is doing 3 months. They've helped staff by reducing staff interest rates, giving staff $1,000 in their bank accounts. Butterfield has agreed. Again, these are all for qualified. In other words, you can't be in arrears for qualified mortgage holders. And, they're going to give a break on those for, 3 months. If you have a loan of up to $1 million or $2 million or whatever, you get slightly different rules. But where's Scotiabank? First Caribbean Bank? Why haven't we heard anything from the two of them? They're major commercial banks on this island, and we have yet to hear anything from them. So I'm wondering, what am I missing here? What's taken so long? Interestingly enough, are they the only two Canadian banks? Scotia and First Caribbean. We know CNB is definitely not Canadian. Butterfield isn't Canadian. So is there something going on with the Canadian banks? Like, why are they taking such a long time to let us know what their offer is? Credit Union is a little bit slack, but they have now said that they're going to do something or another for their members. So you need to make contact with them. So my question then becomes, if you own rental property and the bank is going to work with you and not have you pay your mortgage for at least the next 3 months, but you're going to still potentially have income coming in from the rental properties, why would you be raising the rent? We saw the eviction notice. Okay, I guess if your tenants can't pay, you're not going to give them the same courtesy that the bank is giving you, which is you don't have to pay your mortgage for 3 months. So you're going to just evict them? Like, does that even make any sense? We need to be a little bit kinder to each other, to be honest. I do feel a way about that. Adavan, I think that's how you pronounce your name. How about the staff working in supermarkets? It seems like there's no precautions or safety measures, and there's no announcement of closing of the supermarkets. They are at high risk. Now, listen, I get what you're saying about the supermarkets, but they have actually taken, I can't say they entirely, but I know for sure Foster's Food Fair, or no longer Foster's Food Fair, they've rebranded Foster's Supermarket, has taken some precautions. Woody Foster is going to be joining us tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock right here on the Cold Hard Truth. But they have taken some precautions. And I've seen their staff spraying down everything, wearing gloves. They are taking some precautions. But I do not know if it is entirely possible for us to shut down our sources to like food supplies. They've set aside an hour in the morning for the elderly, asking people not to go in during that hour so that the elderly can have time to shop without being overly exposed to the general public. But we have to recognize that at the end of the day, some businesses will have to remain open. We can't just shut everything down. Jamie says 100% not right. I think Jamie's talking about is talking about the situation with the landlords. Someone else said, I was thinking about that answer also. He's very rude. I think Yvette is referring to the chief medical officer's response. Some of the questions are coming in very quickly. Orville says, put not your trust in the arm of the flesh, Miss Sandra Hill. Well, it's the flesh that's infecting us all right now. So I don't know what to say. John says they're not honest. I do not believe a word from any of them. Well, I tell you what, at the end of the day, There are some serious concerns about how they're delivering their message. Even if they're being honest, people are not going to believe them, and they don't seem to get this. People will not believe them because of the mere fact of the way in which their message is being delivered. It's such a simple truth. Like, I don't get why people do not understand communications 101. Take a class, take a course. Maybe that's what we need to make sure that our elected officials have done before putting them in public office. What about people with car payments? Again, it's going to be, obviously people's biggest concern are their mortgages, but I think this extends to loan facilities. So they will basically extend the terms of your loan at the tail end so that your loan will be covered. It's going to run longer. You're going to end up paying more interest. But at this particular time, you don't have to worry about it for right now. So Martina says, why not limit the number of people allowed in at a time? That question did come up with the premier, and he said that his concern would be, instead of allowing people into the grocery store with the potential ability to spread out, what you'd have happening if you were saying, okay, 10 people at a time, is you have a queue outside of people lined up, standing right next to each other, not being able to keep that social distance of 6 feet, 3 to 6 feet. And that's a problem. So you're taking it from being inside of the store to now outside. And maybe what they need to do is at the parking lot, only allow 50 customers to come into that parking lot. Because once they're in the parking lot and then you've got to queue them up at the door, whether they're queued in the door or they're inside, the risk remains relatively the same. So I would suggest, I don't know how we would work this out, because of course, I don't know what time somebody else is going to the grocery store and what time there's going to be 51 people already into the parking lot. So then you're going to have a queue lined up on the side of the road, but at least you're in your car. I don't know that if that is an option or not. But I think when we speak to Mr. Woody in the morning at 10 o'clock, we can certainly ask him this question, because I think that grocery shopping, people mentioned it for places like A.L. Thompson's, that's also a concern about how many people are in there, and the fact that they're not keeping, the people who are in there don't seem to be understanding the whole concept of keeping that space between themselves and others. Okay, so we had a few other questions. Let me just do one or two more, and then I'm afraid that we're actually out of time. Let me just see here. So Alice, we will definitely be passing yours on. Another question we had, let me just see here. Okay, so we asked the one about Cayman Airways staff, and I think we've answered that the best that we can. I want to ask this to the government. Do they love money, or don't they care about the health of other people? And why is it in El Salvador, the poor country, they close the border? Why the rich came on to take advantage of the people and their health? This is disrespectful, and we people can't take this no more. Why the government can't hurry and close the airport to others who are coming into the island? So obviously the borders are closed now. They're closing as of this weekend. And the reason why the premier did not, when he made this decision on Monday, I think it was, did not immediately close the borders, or was it Friday that he decided, is because he said, essentially, he did not want to create a crisis panic situation where he closed the borders and then no one could get out. Because essentially what happens is you create complete havoc for your visitors here. So he wanted to give people sufficient time to be able to make their travel arrangements, to be able to, do what they needed to do, and not only get out, but remember, we have returning students who need to get in as well. So all of those things needed to happen. So someone else is asking, anybody else heard about FCIB mortgages? We're all waiting, Rosa. We are waiting, trust me. Let me just see before we wrap it up. Pull a number and wait in the parking lot. Radio can announce what numbers are next. Yeah, we'll speak to Woody tomorrow. Please tune in at 10 o'clock. We've had to unfortunately reschedule with him a few times. He's extremely busy, obviously. What about prisoners? No one don't business about them, not because they're in jail. They are being lied to like everybody else. So we do know that there's something brewing at the prison, and you heard it first here on Cayman Mall Road. We actually understand that they may be trying to do a hunger strike because of the way in which they've been treated. So we are trying to get more information on that to see exactly how that's going to play out. Let me see if there's any Instagram questions. Sorry, Instagram. I've been kind of looking at Facebook. What are the measures that the banks are taking to protect their employees? So I know for sure that CNB in particular said that, listen, our staff are a number one priority. We don't want you coming in and meeting with them. If you have any questions, you need to call, email. The staff are also working in shifts so that they are available. And I think the ones that can work remotely have already been set up and they are working remotely as well. That time, please, for the show tomorrow at Woody's going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning. Simpson Boo says, good night, Miss Mall Road. My question is, if a person is here on a visa, but their time finished on the 3rd of April, does that person have to leave the island by Sunday since the airport will be closed? Yes. The short answer is yes. If you're on a visitor's visa, you need to make arrangements to leave. If during the closure of the airport, you know that your time is expiring, because there'll be no other way for you to get out. Now, what the government has said is if your visa expires or is expiring like the 22nd or on Saturday or Sunday, they're not going to require you to even apply for an extension. They're not going to charge you for that. They don't expect you to put in an application. Just try to leave. So I don't know why anyone, if they're here visiting, would want to stay in these circumstances. It would probably be best if you were at home in the comfort of your home and with your own family. But there was an article, so just give me a quick second. There was an article about this that got put up a couple days ago, basically saying that CBC was going to waive any requirements for people to have to apply for an extension. So I do remember seeing that article on our website. That was a couple days ago. I mean, things are happening so quickly, right? So let me see if I can find it. Do me a favor, Simpson Boo. Send me a private message. Here we go. Border Control relaxes visitor extension requirements ahead of airport shutdown. So it says that the Cayman Islands government recently announced the decision to shut down the airport for 3 weeks to assist people who are departing the island. The visitor extension process at CBC has been temporarily varied for visitors and work permit holders. Visitors whose permission to remain on the island expiring between the 22nd of March and the 31st of March will not be required to submit a visitor extension application. Visitors will not have to present themselves to a Customs and Border Control officer, and no action will be taken for permission that expires between those dates. Departing work permit holders whose permission to continue working expires before the 22nd are not required to appear before Customs. These persons can proceed with departing the island prior to airport closures. So I think that they're expecting you to leave. They're just saying that, we're not going to require you to do any of the paperwork in terms of like extensions or whatever. Just prepare yourself to leave. Okay, one more question and then our hour is up. Let me just see what we've got here. So nothing from Scotia, nothing from FCIB. This person says, Sandy, people need to stay at home. And this is right. I saw Alva Saku actually posted something about a returning student who came back, and they actually were seen at the liquor store. Really? Send somebody to buy your liquor. Please take your behind home. You're in self-quarantine for 14 days. If you can't go without liquor for 14 days, you may have a problem. So Mario says the premier says that you can stay. So we're going to get some clarification on this. I guess really if you can stay, you just need to make sure that whoever you're visiting doesn't have any issues with landlords kicking them out or any jobs that they're out of or that sort of thing, that they can remain in a stable situation that doesn't impact your visit here. But let me get some absolute confirmation on that. School in the UK will close tomorrow. So if the border was closed prior to the kids, couldn't come home either. So that was another point about, why the borders are closing this weekend. Alice is going to send her cell phone number, not a problem. Shania says some foreigners have been saying that they're not leaving even if they don't have it because they know government will help them regardless. Yeah, that's going to put another burden on the Cayman Islands government. They should require right now, if you're not a Caymanian, you're not here on a valid work permit, because the mere numbers, the fewer people you have here, that helps with the social distancing, that helps with the whole contagion situation. You're more likely to be able to contain it. Here's a quick question. Some countries are issuing wristbands and iPhone apps to track any incoming people. Maybe those returning students need to simply wear a wristband so no stores will sell to them and report them to get back home when you need to isolate and name and shame any young person from overseas returning to not serve them, ? Pamela, it's a good question. I did have someone message about, and basically putting an ankle bracelet on them, like what they do for the prisoners. I don't know if we can quite go that far. But again, this is something that we don't have in place. We don't have any wristbands. What kind of wristbands would we be able to order? Students are already here. Some have been returning all week. Some even came in last week from Friday and before. So the question is, what do you do about all those people? We just need to be responsible. I get that you're young, you're in your 20s, and you probably aren't really thinking fully about this, but you're jeopardizing the lives of people that you could very well care about. Some elderly people in this community are related to you. And so if this begins to spread in this community, we're all in danger. The other day, a 21-year-old person died from the coronavirus. So it's not just the elderly, although they're being hit the hardest. It is other people as well. So don't be selfish. I mean, that's the bottom line here. The US cases have soared past 10,000. So all of the people, I hear we have some celebrities here that people have been talking about. You guys know who they are. Wayne Wade, or whatever the heck his name is, and his wife are here on island. So over 10,000, doctors pleading for protective gear, government claiming that they've slashed red tape to expand trials for possible treatments. Poor Italy, their death toll has now soared to 3,405, actually surpassing China. Sorry, my throat's getting a little dry now. The State Department is advising Americans to refrain from traveling abroad. It's just a mess. So the Senate Republicans are drafting a plan to send $1,200 check to taxpayers as part of a $1 trillion rescue effort. So stock market's tumbling all over Wall Street. But again, going back to that question, the US can afford to have a $1 trillion rescue effort. The Cayman Islands doesn't have that kind of money. We don't print money. We just don't have it. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this new segment, Seek Out Sandy. It's a Q&A segment where we answer your questions as succinctly as possible and try to give you the information that we can. I think we will do another segment of at least an hour in the morning, but because we have Woody coming on at 10 o'clock, I don't want to go too far with that one. So maybe plan on between 7 and 8 o'clock. We'll do a morning segment. So if you have any additional questions, I know a lot of them were coming in live stream that we did not get to, just DM me the emails, the question, sorry. And we can certainly, respond to those. So Alice says, thanks. All right, folks, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, Woody Foster will be joining us at 10 o'clock. He is the president of the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce, and he's also the managing director for Foster's Supermarket. So if you have any questions related to the supermarket, any comments for him, kindly tune in, and we will get those answered for you. Please have a safe night. If you're here already from university, kindly remember self-quarantine for 14 days. China claims, which I'm not minded to believe much of anything they say, but they claim for the first time that they've had no new reported cases in Wuhan, China, which was the epicenter and the outbreak of this whole fiasco that has impacted the entire world. If that is true, that is certainly a good sign. However, reading the news, it's saying that the rest of the world, including Europe, is in for a bumpy ride. Cemeteries in the northern city of Bergamo in Italy are so overwhelmed that the army was called in to transport bodies elsewhere to be cremated. And the army has sent 120 doctors and health professionals to help out those people in those areas, which are the hardest hit areas of Italy. A lot of people around the world are in complete turmoil right now. Let's hold it down here in the Cayman Islands, do the best that we can, try to remain as positive as we can, but we also need the truth, and we do not want anyone lying to us. Only with accurate and correct information can we make some good decisions going forward. Folks, you've been listening to The Cold Hard Truth, our special segment, Seek Out Sandy. Big shout out to Hannah, our friend who came up with the name for this segment. I want you guys to have a wonderful night.
But I know all about you. I've come to talk to you tonight about the things I've seen you do. I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on. Let me introduce myself.